Do you mind if I tangent for a second to talk about the Old Republic? I promise I'm going somewhere with this, just hear me out. The Old Republic is BioWare's Star Wars themed MMO styled after the Knights of the Old Republic games. Unlike any other MMO, it features the usual BioWare storytelling on top of the dual faction system found in World of Warcraft. This means you can create your character for either the Republic or the resurgent Sith Empire, and pick your moral choices on top of it. And the kicker is that going too far in one direction on the morality chart doesn't make your character switch sides. So a dark side Jedi won't betray the Republic to join the Sith. Now, the Republic and the Jedi have always been a den of corruption as far back as the original trilogy, so this isn't really a new concept. What did turn people's heads, however, was the fact that this also applied to the Sith. You can play as a Sith and make morally good choices. This is something Star Wars has never done. While Light Jedi, Dark Jedi, and Dark Sith were common and omnipresent, this was wholly unique to the Old Republic. So naturally, I was all over that like Lizzie on black fabric. I went in expecting to not get much, just a Sith who didn't bother killing subordinates for failure, and not much beyond that. I was not prepared for just how good it would actually be.
Fine. The Master will grant the slave's last wish. The Emperor calls for your death. Attack me if you dare.
I was never, nor shall I ever be, your slave.
You see, it's a common joke in BioWare games that the quote-unquote evil options are laughably cartoonish, often amounting to little more than "rawr, kill everything." That's also the case in the Old Republic, but when you're playing as a Sith, it's a lot less noticeable because, well, this is what Sith do. Killing random people for no other reason than because you can and there's nothing they can do about it is something Sith are well known for, and most Sith NPCs you encounter actively encourage you to behave this way. Showing mercy to people even as early as the starting quest will be something that other characters will regard as peculiar, even being surprised that it works. The fact that the Sith are a thinly veiled fascist empire in space isn't lost on the writers of the Old Republic, and you might think that in a game like SWTOR they would dial that down and rewrite the Sith Empire to be less nakedly fascist in order to make people more comfortable playing it. They don't. In fact, they double down on it. See, in the movies, the fascist undertones of the Empire take the form of marching in step, the soldiers being called stormtroopers and talking about how fear will keep the local systems in line. In the sequel trilogy, we upgrade to Hux yelling a loud speech and using the word degenerate, and the new stormtroopers actively do the Nazi salute. In the Old Republic, however, aliens are not considered citizens and are even reduced to slaves, Force sensitives are considered to be so important they're granted special privileges even when they're only barely trained acolytes, and blood purity is something that many Imperial NPCs are obsessed with, to the point that not only is Sith pure blood a racial choice, but impure diluted blood is one of the most common reasons Sith betray each other. So they took the space Nazis and added all the things the Nazis were known for. Playing a Sith character is to be actively playing the role of a fascist. Now at this point you're probably thinking, Lily, you said the Sith were interesting, but so far my opinion of you is rapidly deteriorating. Where are you going with this? Well, remember what I said about the dual faction system working hand in hand with the morality system? Well, all that above shit applies to you, the player, if you're dark side. If you're a light side Sith, the fundamental theme of the story is all this shit is fucking us hard.
If one man can thwart the Empire, how do we show our faces in public?
As a light side Sith, you frequently work with the Jedi to accomplish your goals, and in many cases you have interactions with the Jedi that make them fundamentally question everything they've been led to believe about the Sith. You actively quash people who are obsessed with purity of blood, hold acolytes accountable for their rampant murder frenzy, treat prisoners of war with respect, and by the time you come to Ilum, you actively encourage the acceptance of aliens into the Empire, and even get to force choke a dipshit racist who objects to it.
And you? I did not request your help so that you could bring aliens into the Empire.
Speak to me again in that tone.
I'm sorry, my lord.
The two Sith classes you can play as complement this idea. The Sith Inquisitor is a slave considered to be of impure blood allowed onto Korriban only because they're Force sensitive, and from the moment you set foot onto the planet, the sneering disdain that the purebloods have for you is immediately apparent. While the Sith Warrior actually is a scion of some ancient Sith bloodline who enjoys some of the highest privileges in the Empire, and who nonetheless rolls their eyes at all this master race nonsense and at the privileges that they have benefited from. In fact, the Warrior stands in direct contrast to the Inquisitor's main rival on Korriban, Fawn Alf. Like the Warrior, Fawn is a scion of a prominent Sith family who enjoys special treatment at the hands of a prejudiced overseer who deliberately rigs the various tests to help him succeed. Like a dark side warrior, Fawn is quite proud and dismissive of his social inferiors, killing one with Force lightning just to show off, and certainly has the raw power to back it up. However, unlike the Warrior, whose trials still test their abilities and whose skill and power are backed up with a strong work ethic and genuine bravery, Fawn is very lazy and never really improves as a result of his soft, easy trials. One of the story threads for the warrior involves drawing a Jedi Padawan out of hiding by going after her parents. You discover that they're lowly servants on Alderaan, and in an attempt to wound the Padawan's heart, you offer them a life of riches and luxury in the Empire. You literally lift them out of poverty and pseudo-slavery and promise them riches. And in a conversation with Barriss immediately afterward, you're given the option to keep that promise. The Jedi protecting them from you didn't give two licks of a shit about what kind of life they were going to lead after you left. And one of the big reasons that light side Sith tend to reject this fascist nonsense is for the simple fact that the Sith Empire is now on its 5th resurgence into the galaxy. On multiple occasions, both Sith characters repeatedly ask, if all this blood purity and master race crap really is important, then why does the Republic keep kicking our asses? All the backstabbing and subterfuge the Sith do in order to scrabble for just a little more personal power has the knock-on effect of weakening the Empire as a whole. Every subordinate slaughtered is one free kill for the Republic. Every Sith betrayed by another Sith is a free score for the Jedi. When you do encounter Jedi as a Sith character, they're really fucking snotty to you, even to the point of talking about you like you're not even there. The Jedi have gotten comfortable with the idea that they will always win against the Sith because good will always triumph over evil, but the Jedi are not the good guys in Star Wars. They never have been. They only beat the Sith so often because the Sith do most of the work for them. The Sith Warrior storyline involves a major character who has been doing nothing but scrabble for power for decades and even tries to supplant the Emperor himself. Darth Malgus is one of the few Sith who recognize that the attrition rate that all this master race nonsense creates ultimately makes the Empire weaker. The thing they believe makes them stronger is actively fucking them over at every possible opportunity. The Sith storylines are an ultimate refutation of fascism and racist policies on a very practical level, one that you get to take part in. It's not just that it's hideously evil to behave this way, it's actively fucking you over in the process. You play as a character who benefits from caste systems the Empire has put in place and still decide to tear it all down anyway. Why? Because your character actually cares about the Empire and doesn't want to see it destroyed by the Republic. Again. Personal power doesn't mean anything if you keep losing. It's ultimately true patriotism that leads to your character abandoning the systems that have benefited them personally and working to make the Empire better. This is ultimately why your character doesn't become a Jedi and join the Republic. They don't believe in either of those things, and while working with the Jedi on several occasions, they fundamentally reject their passive philosophy. It seems that in the Sith Warriors case, they don't even believe in democracy itself. In Knights of the Fallen Empire, you get to have a conversation with Arik Jordan about how Chancellor Suresh has effectively become a dictator in the Republic.
The Republic I signed up to protect doesn't exist anymore. We gave the reins over to people who don't care how we win. Just as long as we do, Suresh is all but a dictator now.
Don't you pride yourselves on keeping all the power out of the hands of one individual?
Not enough politicians with the spine to stick to their principles when it really mattered. Suresh and her puppet chancellor have everyone convinced the state of emergency requires executive action. She and her top brass just push through whatever suits their interests. Never thought I'd miss bureaucrats butting into military matters. But what we gained in efficiency, we lost in soul.
A war won't wait for you to tally votes, and it doesn't care if you can't reach a consensus.
Someone still has to answer for those decisions at the end of the day.
By the way, you get to meet Chancellor Suresh later when she attempts to kill you to seize control of the Alliance.
I assume you know everything, then. I'll take that as a yes. It doesn't matter. The Alliance needs a leader like me. I saw an opportunity and I took it. I won't apologize for that.
We are well beyond apologies.
What do we do with her?
Execution, I expect. It's what Valen would do. It's what I would do.
And it's exactly what you deserve. Is it wrong to say I enjoyed that?
I was more surprised than I ought to be to learn that my own character didn't believe in democracy, but I suppose that's the beauty of a game where the protagonist has their own voice and personality separate from the player. But despite all this, despite the thorough pummeling that fascist dogma gets in these stories, your character is still not a good person. There's a lot of light side dialogue in the vein of this doesn't need to get violent, but instead of pleading for a peaceful solution, you threaten people to accept a peaceful solution or you'll kill them.
I'm so glad you've all found an accord. But there's still the matter of you being our enemy, Sith. Not only will I not allow the Wilsons to do this, but you had yourself a killing spree getting here. That can't go unpunished.
Stand in my way, and everyone dies.
Quote-unquote good choices are either conniving, manipulative, or just flat out exploiting the fact that you have a lightsaber and they don't. Oftentimes it's little more than keeping your word to not kill people. You get given light side points for actively choosing not to murder. There's actually one instance where you break into a ship that was tailing you and a Jedi on the holocom asks that you show the ignorant crew mercy. The light side option is little more than gesturing to them to run. The writers accepted the reality that even a well-intentioned character who has been in this environment since birth is not going to suddenly become a loving flower child just because they've realized that master race philosophy is a destructive and self-defeating delusion. The writers went in with the idea that if a player has elected to play a Sith and make light-sided decisions, they are not some mouth-breathing idiot who obsessively needs to be able to root for the main character, and so they're not going to be opposed to a villain protagonist or even just a protagonist who is ruthless. So they didn't woobify the space totalitarian.
Share. You don't share anything. You enslave. You devour. I will never be part of that.